Hey guys, my name is Mitsumiyo, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for the day is, what do you think about a new operator in Rainbow Six Siege that can place down a magnetic gadget that can grab nades out of the air similar to Jager? So this idea sounds very similar to something that Macy J came up with. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's amazing. The way that it works is that just like Jager, you would place this in front of a window, and then if a nade passes on by, it will bring it towards the actual gadget. But unlike Jager, where he zaps and neutralizes the nade so that it doesn't actually go off, this wouldn't do that. So if you throw in a bunch of flashbangs, it will actually grab the flashbang, pull it towards its location. The flash will still go off, so you need to be wary of that, but it won't destroy the gadgets. The counter to this, though, is that if you do use a normal nade, or you use like a Zofia impact, for example, it will grab that nade, pull it towards it, and destroy the gadget, of course, because of the explosion. And so I think the reason why I like this idea so much is that I really do believe that this is something that eventually we could see introduced into Rainbow Six Siege. I always wanted to have someone that would be a substitute to Jager. I don't think that he is necessarily required right now, but to have someone else that is able to deal with nades in a slightly different way, I feel like this is a way that Ubisoft could actually implement something like that. This would also extend on over to smoke nades, but once again, the reason why I like this idea so much is that the smoke nade would go off. So even though it may not go exactly where the offensive player wanted it to go, maybe they were going for a specific line of sight, it's still going to cause that smoke screen, which is going to block some LOS, and maybe they could still take advantage of it. And so maybe in those situations, it would have been better off to have a Jager on their team instead of this new character. And so just in general, I think that this is an amazing idea. Who knows, maybe it might be a bit too powerful being able to completely counter all flashes and smokes going from one direction, but I think as long as offense understands how to work around this, that this would be an awesome addition into Rainbow Six Siege. The next question comes from Demetrius, and it is, do you think that Nomad needs a rework? Nomad is in a really interesting position right now. On the one hand, I find her weapons to be really lackluster. It could just be me, everyone else might find them to be amazing, but I really do think that there's some of the weaker weapons available to the offensive team. Like, I would much rather use Gridlock because of her weapons compared to Nomad. On the other hand, though, her gadget is incredible. It doesn't really have any counter. I understand that Jager technically is a counter, but most of the time, as long as she's working around it, it's not really going to be all that big of a deal. I think the reason why I'm not really too fond of the way they've designed her is that there's really no way for defense to know where she's placed her gadget around the map. Yes, it is quite loud. As long as you're listening and she is nearby, you are going to hear her use her gadget because there is a very loud audible cue. There also is that yellow laser sight, so you kind of have a general idea of where she is. But knowing where she placed it is kind of a different story. Unless you physically saw the laser sight and then you heard it go off, you're not going to know what doorway she placed it in. And so knowing that it's nearby doesn't really mean a whole lot. Now, can you not run out of a doorway ever again because you heard it activate? Like, that's just ridiculous. And so what I'm kind of hoping for is that Ubisoft makes a small adjustment and gives this gadget an audible sound when it's on a wall. It doesn't need to be loud, it doesn't need to be that obvious, but as long as the defender is being observant of their surroundings and they recognize that audio cue that this is nearby, they can then work around it. Right now, that's not really the case. If you are roaming around the map and you are nowhere near the Nomad when she was actually placing this thing down, you could get flung into a claymore and there's literally nothing you can do about it. Like, there's no way for you to know that it's there, and to get taken out in that kind of a manner is really frustrating. Overall, though, if I did have to rework Nomad, that would be the way I go about it. I know that some people might not think that that goes far enough because Nomad is literally the only character in the game that causes someone else to completely lose control over their operator. Some feel like that shouldn't be a part of Rainbow Six Siege, and to some extent I do agree with them. Like, I think that that might be a bit too powerful, but I think as long as they give more ways for defense to understand this gadget is nearby, that it it wouldn't be as bad, but of course that is just my opinion. The next question comes from Focus, and it is, have you played Division 2, and if so, what are your thoughts on it? I have been very impressed with this game so far. Now, it might be too early to tell, but it seems like they've taken all of the problems and concerns that the original had and solved almost all of them. Now, I'm not going to go out and say that it is perfect. Some people are saying that this is the best looter FPS ever made, and while I think that that holds some merit, like I really do think that they've done an incredible job here, it might be a bit too early to tell. Right now, we're at World Tier 4, which is the hardest difficulty currently, and to get to World Tier 5, I think we're going to have to wait a couple of weeks. And when we do get to that higher tier, that's when I'm hoping the game really opens up for that endgame content. When that happens, there'll be new gear sets. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more exotics that are going to be dropping. That's going to be the hardest difficulty, and really when people can kind of sink their teeth into that endgame. But right now, what they've laid in the foundation is phenomenal. There's loads of ways to get gear. Gear is flying and popping around all over the place. You're constantly getting rewarded, and really the gameplay itself is just really satisfying too. The amount of enemy variety is pretty impressive. I don't think it's perfect. I think they probably could have done more with it, but considering we're not on an alien planet like in Destiny, for example, where they literally could do anything with their imagination enemy-wise, considering everyone you're going against is just simply a guy walking around Washington, D.C., there's a lot of different variety in that kind of gameplay. You have to know what the enemy type's weakness is and take advantage of that. And when you have like 5 or 6 different kinds of enemies swarming around you that are all trying to flank or push you, it makes for some really satisfying gameplay. And so I think it might be a bit too early to tell if this game is going to have a lot of longevity. What they've got here and the foundation that they've laid, I think is really solid. As long as they continue to support the game with meaningful and varied content like they did with the original Division, they could be onto something special. I'm crossing my fingers that World Tier 5 is everything that I'm hoping it will be, but we really are just gonna kind of have to wait and see. The next question comes from David, and it is, in Rainbow Six Siege, the ACOG is the best scope. Why would Ubisoft decide to make a better scope for Kaid, Nomad Secondary, and now Capitao and Gridlock? Well, first of all, I will fully admit that I'm not entirely sure why Ubisoft did this for the secondary on Nomad and Kaid. I figured they learned their lesson a long time ago with the SMG-11. I'm sure you guys remember, but if you weren't here back then, the SMG-11 could use this attachment, and it was ridiculously powerful. But I think one of the reasons why it was so strong was because of its crazy high RPM. It had a lot of recoil, but because of the RPM, you only needed to get a couple shots near someone's face, and you could, of course, snipe them from across the map. And while you can still do that with Nomad Secondary, I don't think it's nowhere near as powerful. And so I'm assuming that's why they felt like it was okay for those two operators. Now, as for Gridlock and Capitao, I think really what they're trying to accomplish is just to simply make them more appealing. The LMGs in Rainbow Six Siege, in my opinion, really aren't all that great. You can do well with them, don't get me wrong, but I think people gravitate away from them mainly because of their very slow aim down sight time. It takes a while for you to actually ADS. And so if you get into a tight spot where someone rounds the corner and you just simply were not ready for it, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage. And so by giving them a better scope that doesn't have as large of a housing, you can just simply see more in front of you, it kind of removes a little bit of that weakness and hopefully will get people to actually try these weapons out a bit more. I don't think by giving them access to admittedly the best ACOG in the game, it really is that good, has all of a sudden made them overpowered. I feel like people are now experimenting with them, which is exactly what Ubisoft was going for, but it hasn't made these two characters a must pick. I don't even think they're anywhere near a must pick because of this very attachments. All in all though, I think that's just really what it comes down to. What I'm really interested in seeing though is that if this becomes a trend, Ubisoft might be testing the waters here to see if this is a good way to give specific weapons a little bit of a boost in effectiveness, if this is one way they try to slightly buff other weapons in the game that aren't really used a whole lot right now. That's a distinct possibility. Who knows, maybe I'm completely off base and they're just simply trying to make these operators a bit more unique. That is one thing that Ubisoft has strived to in the past and something that they've done, and that is a distinct possibility here as well. But yeah guys, that is what it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you think that Nomad needs a rework? Do you think that's necessary? Why or why not? Or how would you go about it? Let me know down below in the comments. If you've played Division 2, Are you enjoying it as much as I am, or have you been disappointed? As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can always leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until next time, guys, have a good one and take it easy.